Welcome back to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and the Republican Commander-in-Chief debate. I'm Scott Pelley with CBS News, along with Major Garrett of National Journal.
Thanks again, Scott. Mr. Speaker, you said yesterday that Governor Romney is a competent manager, but you said you were unsure if he was really capable of changing Washington. You said you were the change agent. Based on the arc of this campaign and perhaps what you've heard tonight, would you care to evaluate Governor Romney's ability to think outside the box and change the United States' national security or foreign policy perspectives?
No.
You said so last night, sir. Then what was the point, sir? Then what was the point, sir, of bringing it up yesterday on a national radio show?
I brought it up yesterday because I was on a national radio show. I think he brings up things when he's on a national radio show. We're here tonight talking to the American people about why every single one of us is better than Barack Obama, and that's a topic I'd rather
say. Then, Mr. Speaker, if you would like to.
By the way, let me just say, compared to this administration, talking about a friend who's a great business manager as a good manager is an enormous improvement over Barack Obama.
Then, Mr. Speaker, I will remember you talking as Speaker about the necessity of leaders to think outside the box.
Yes.
If you were president, how would you think outside the box about some of the issues we've discussed here tonight?
Oh, in a number of ways. As I said earlier, I would explicitly adopt the Reagan, John Paul II, Thatcher strategy towards Iran. I would do the same thing towards North Korea. I would adopt a very strong policy towards the United Nations of dramatically taking on its absurdities. I would explicitly repudiate what Obama's done on Agenda 21 as the kind of interference from the United Nations that's wrong. There are a number of other areas. I would also, frankly, apply Lean Six Sigma to the Pentagon to liberate the money to rebuild the Navy. We need a capital investment program, and this administration is shrinking the Navy to a point where it's going to be incapable of doing its job worldwide. So there are a number of places I would be thinking outside the box.
And that's time, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Mr. Kaine, you've often said that you'll listen to your generals for their advice before making decisions as Commander-in-Chief. How will you know when you should overrule your generals?
The approach to making a critical decision, first make sure that you surround yourself with the right people. And I feel that I'll be able to make that assessment when we put together the cabinet and all of the people from the military, etc. You will know you're making the right decision when you consider all the facts and ask them for alternatives. It is up to the Commander-in-Chief to make that judgment call based upon all the facts. And because I'll have a multiple group of people offering different recommendations, this gives me the best opportunity to select the one that makes the most amount of sense. But ultimately, it's up to the Commander-in-Chief to make that decision.
Senator Santorum, this is really a question about how you build a leadership model. How, sir, would you decide when it was necessary for you as Commander-in-Chief to overrule the advice you get from either your civilian advisors or your military advisors?
Well, I'll come into to the Office of Presidency with a very clear agenda, and we'll get people together that will share my point of view. When I was in the United States Senate, I didn't hire people who didn't share how I approach the problem. That's what the people of this country are electing. They're electing someone who's going to be very crystal clear, and as you heard from my first two answers, I don't mince words. I say exactly what I believe, and then I follow through and do what I say. I did that when I was in public life before. Even though I represented a state that wasn't a particularly conservative state, I followed through and did that, and I will surround myself with people who will execute what I promised the American public to do, and then we will go about the process of doing it.
You mentioned your agenda. If you could prioritize one or 2 points, maybe more if you'd like, what your key agenda is on national security.
Well, obviously, the issue we were talking about before, which is, number one, Iran must not get a nuclear weapon, and we will go about whatever it takes to make sure that happens. I hope that some of the things that I've talked about here and new thing that I've been talking about for a while, which is covert activity. You know, there have been scientists turning up dead in Russia and in Iran. There have been computer viruses. There have been problems at their facility. I hope that the United States has been involved with that. I hope that we've been doing everything we can covertly to make sure that that program doesn't proceed forward. And if we're lucky enough, and I'm not sure we will be, that if no action is taken and we still don't have a nuclear Iran, that would be my laser beam focus to make sure that would not happen.
And that's time, Senator. Thank you very much. Governor Perry, you advocate the elimination of the Department of Energy. If you eliminate the Department of Energy...
Glad you remembered it.
I've had some time to think about it, sir.
Me too.
If you eliminate the Department of Energy, what do you do with the nuclear weapons?
Well, there are plenty of places in our government that can have oversight on our nuclear energy. But let me back over to the question that you asked before this about what is the most important thing from a strategic standpoint, Commander-in-Chief. For 10 years, I have been the Commander-in-Chief of over 20,000 plus individuals in the state of Texas as we've dealt with a host of either natural disasters or having deployments into the combat zones. So if there's someone on this stage who has had that hands-on Commander-in-Chief experience, it is me, as the Governor of the state of Texas. I've dealt with generals. I have individuals at the Department of Defense who have been at the highest levels, both on the civilian side and on the military side, that will help me make decisions about those issues that we face as a country. So I feel very comfortable from day one of surrounding myself with individuals who have extraordinary backgrounds in national defense and will be able to put this country on a track that Americans will feel we know that we're going to be secure,
and that's
including
time, sir.
The southern border of this country with Mexico.
And that's time. Thank you.
I don't need to tell the people on this stage that presidential politics is an interactive business, and of course this debate is interactive as well. And we have an email question, I'm happy to say, emailed into the National Journal, and it comes from Stephen Shafroth of the Dells, Oregon. And I'd like to address this question to Mr. Kaine. Stephen writes, I served on an aircraft carrier during the Vietnam War. I believe that torture is always wrong in all cases. What is your stance on torture?
I believe in following the procedures that have been established by our military. I do not agree with torture, period. However, I will trust the judgment of our military leaders to determine what is torture and what is not torture. That is the critical consideration.
Mr. Kaine, of course, you're familiar with the long-running debate we've had about whether waterboarding constitutes torture or is it an enhanced interrogation technique. In the last campaign, the Republican nominee, John McCain, and Barack Obama agreed that it was torture and should not be allowed legally, and that the Army Field Manual should be the methodology used to interrogate enemy combatants. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree, sir?
I agree that it was an enhanced interrogation technique.
And then you would support it as president. You would return to that policy.
I would return to that policy. I don't see it as torture. I see it as an enhanced interrogation technique.
Congresswoman Bachmann, your opinion on this question that our emailer asked.
If I were president, I would be willing to use waterboarding. I think it was very effective. It gained information for our country. And I also would like to say that today, under Barack Obama, he is allowing the ACLU to run the CIA. You need to understand that today when we interdict a terrorist on the battlefield, we have no jail for them. We have nowhere to take them. We have no CIA interrogation anymore. It is as though we have decided we want to lose in the war on terror under President Obama. That's not my strategy. My strategy will be that the United States will be victorious in the war on terror.
Congressman Paul, my spidey sense tells me we have a debate about to get launched here. I know you have an opinion you'd like to weigh in.
Yes. Torture is illegal. And by our laws, it's illegal by international laws.
How do you define torture, sir?
Well, waterboarding is torture, and many other things. It's illegal under international law and under our law. It's also immoral, and it's also very impractical. There's no evidence that you really get reliable evidence. Why would you accept the position of torturing 100 people because you know one person might have information? And that's what you do when you accept the principle of torture. I think it's uncivilized and have no practical advantages, and is really un-American to accept on principle that we will torture people that we capture.
And
Major,
that's time.
Major, I have to weigh in on this. I have to say something. I have to say something on this.
I'm sorry, Congresswoman, just a moment, if you would, please. Let's give Governor Huntsman an opportunity to take 30 seconds on that question.
Gets a little lonely over here in Siberia from time to time.
Tell me about it.
First of all, let me thank the sailor on the ship. I have 2 boys in the United States Navy, and all they want to do is go on to fight, protect, and defend the great freedoms that we share in this country. This country has values. We have a name brand in the world. I've lived overseas 4 times. I've been an ambassador for my country 3 times. I've lived overseas and done business. We diminish our standing in the world, and the values that we project, which include liberty, democracy, human rights, and open markets, when we torture. We should not torture. Waterboarding is torture. We dilute ourselves down like a whole lot of other countries, and we lose that ability to project values that a lot of people in corners of this world are still relying on the United States to stand up for.
And that is time. Thank you, sir. Governor Romney, recently President Obama ordered the death of an American citizen who was suspected of terrorist activity overseas. Is it appropriate for the American president, on the president's say-so alone, to order the death of an American citizen suspected of terrorism?